Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mighty Companions. And I'll be your host, Reverend Glen Ganaway, Integral Mentor. I am here to share with you for an hour tonight my passion for A Course in Miracles. I think A Course in Miracles is the best way in the Western canon to understand a non-dual perspective. And I am so glad that you've decided to spend an hour with me as we work our way through the Course in Miracles. Did you know that you can read the Course in Miracles, all 669 pages of the major text, if you read it 12.8 pages a week? Well, it's true, and that's kind of the structure of this class. We're going to be going through 12 those sections every week. Now, some chapters really only have 13 pages, so we'll do an entire chapter in a week. Other chapters, like today, on chapter 26, I think it is, we're going to be looking at only half the chapter. It's quite beautiful. The Course in Miracles is a channeled book by Helen Schuckman. She began channeling in 1964, but it wasn't until 1973 that I believe that the Course was published in the form that it is in today. Now, there are very many versions, at least 4 or 5 that come to mind right now, including the Urtext and the Sparkle version and the Soul version and all of that. But I'm going to be using this version. This is the 3rd edition. It's called the Combined Volume 3rd edition of A Course in Miracles, and it's the only one that has the Course in Miracles, the psychotherapy, the Song of Prayer, and the manual for teachers, and the workbook lessons in it. I would encourage you to you could get this course actually on PDF form online, and that'll be the form that is in this course as well. The Course in Miracles is my passion, but I'm an interfaith person, so I'm going to be bringing you these ideas based on an interfaith perspective. If I remember a Lakota story, I remember a Hindu story, if I remember maybe the way that Buddha puts it, I will offer that perspective, or offer the way that speaks about a particular law or particular truth, because I think it's really important to find a way to implement and use these lessons, which is why I am also an integral mentor. I'm an integralist. This theory was started by Aurobindo and made popular by Ken Wilber. He's one of the most translated philosophers on the planet right now. And Integral uses this idea of seeing and talking about the world in 4 different ways. So I'm going to be bringing these lessons and encouraging us to implement them in our own interior life, in the physical world that we live in, to create the structures like laws and culture that we live in, and improve our relationships. So I'm going to be speaking to the Course in Miracles, through the Course in Miracles, and hopefully teaching you the laws and the spiritual laws in the Course in Miracles, but not only in the Course in Miracles, so that we can have the experience of reality. That's what I want. Now, we can call that a spiritual experience. We could call that all number of things. But what it is our ability to be present and our ability to experience what is. The Course in Miracles calls that heaven. The Course in Miracles says that is when perspective and knowledge come together. And we're going to be talking about that exactly today. We're going to be talking about how knowledge and perspective come together. We are up to chapter 26, and it's called The Transition. Now, it's no accident that last week we talked about perspective, and the week before that, I believe, we talked about justice, because we're in the second half of A Course in Miracles. The first half of A Course in Miracles, up through about chapter 19, we come to the realization of what we are to bring to the world. Now, what I mean by what we are is every one of us, each one of us has a way of expressing the love of God in a unique sort of way. and that is our gift to the world. Maybe it's through mothering, maybe it's through teaching, maybe it's through driving a truck. It doesn't matter. What we will do in this world is share ourselves with others. What we want to do in this world is to increase and create more of what is real. The Course talks very specifically about what is real and what is not real. So let's take a look at what the Course says about itself. In the beginning, in the introduction, it has these words, and these are the first words that Helen Schuckman heard when she began channeling A Course in Miracles. But I believe she took a sip of coffee first. This is what she said. This is what she heard. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that's beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear. But what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. And herein lies the peace of God. In this moment is the peace of God. In this time together is the peace of God. We can strengthen what is real because we can strengthen our connection. We can strengthen what is beautiful, loving, joyful, knowledge, truth, justice. We can strengthen those things. We can strengthen our relationships because they are real. This idea of oneness is the idea of these things, this creation as the Son of God. She calls us the Son of God in the Course in Miracles, and that just means the only thing that's been created. The Course in Miracles is sometimes criticized for using overly overwrought language and very Christian-sounding language, but that's exactly the healing that it's offering. A lot of us have been damaged and hurt by the King James Version of the Bible, which sounds a lot like A Course in Miracles. So people reject it outright. They hear this way of talking and they immediately don't want to hear anymore because they've been so hurt by it. I would offer you the idea that if this is true for you, if you've been damaged by the church, if you've been damaged by organized religion, that the Course in Miracles offers you a way of healing because it uses these terms like salvation and forgiveness and sacrifice, which we're going to be talking about today, and oneness in a new way. It turns these ideas on their heads and enables us to see them in a non-dual way in which improves our ability to experience the present moment. Do you know what your habit is about getting out of the moment? Do you know yourself well enough to know how to be present and what gets you out of the moment? Do you know that there is no past and there is no future? There is only now. Why aren't we always here? Well, I can tell you that I'm not always like here because I am afraid of the way I will feel. Well, the Course speaks directly to that as well. In the Course in Miracles, it asks us to apply the lessons. It asks us to apply these spiritual laws, which we talk about here, and use what comes up. And it's called the workbook instructions, and this is what it says. The overall aim of the exercises is to increase your ability to extend the ideas you will be practicing to include everything. This will require no effort on your part. Thank God, right? This will require no effort on your part. The exercises themselves meet the conditions necessary for this kind of transfer. Some of the ideas the workbook contains you'll find hard to believe, and others may seem to be quite startling. This does not matter. You're merely asked to apply the ideas you are merely asked to apply the ideas as you are directed to do. You are not asked to judge them at all. You're asked only to use them. It is the use that will give them meaning to you and will show you that they are true. Remember only this: you need not believe the ideas, you need not accept them, and you need not even welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist, and none of this will matter or decrease their efficacy. But do not allow yourselves to make exceptions in applying the ideas the workbook contains. And whatever your reactions to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than that is required. Nothing more is required from us other than we apply what we know is true. Sometimes it can be quite a frightening thing to be applying the truth, especially in a stressful situation in which someone is yelling at us or we're having a very, very difficult time. I had a dental sort of emergency this past week, and I had one of my teeth taken out at Columbia University dental school. So I had a really bad toothache, and I went in, and it had to come out. It wasn't savable. So I was in great pain for a couple of hours, and applying the truth became all I really wanted to do, because applying the truth offered me the promise of the relief of suffering. Now I think that pain might be unavoidable. The Course says it is avoidable if you choose the perspective of the Holy Spirit and act on those ideas. Sometimes I'm better able to do that than others, but I wasn't able to avoid pain this past week, but I think I was able to avoid a great deal of suffering because I applied the truth. The truth in that situation is that all of those people were there to help me feel better. All of those people were coming to my aid because I asked them for help. All of those people really were doing their utmost to lessen the pain and stress that I was going through. That I still had pain and stress was, something that I was going to deal with. But I could see so much care and so much love and thought expressed in the doctors and nurses that were around me, and that was comforting to know that whatever I was experiencing, I was in good hands, and I was choosing to interpret and either judge the experience one way or another. And I chose to let go of the suffering, and I chose to believe that I was safe and that everyone was there for my benefit. I know I haven't always done that in the past, so I offer this to you as a way of saying I know that the truth works. That if we apply the ideas, that the outcomes from applying those ideas will be peace and will be joy. My lovely husband Yolanda was there with me, and I got to cry on her shoulder, and that was lovely because I was so supported. So these ideas, these ideas will bring you into a community, I promise. Practicing these ideas will show you that we are one. Practicing these ideas will improve not only your life and your life experience, but it will improve your perspective and ability to see what is. And I promise that will be a lot less full of anxiety than anything else. At least that's the way it has worked for me. If you're following along in A Course in Miracles, in this 12.8 pages run we're doing through A Course in Miracles, and you're also doing the workbook lessons, you'll find yourself roughly on lessons 320, 321, 322, 323. That's where you'll find yourself. It's in the section called What is Creation? And this is what it says. Creation is the sum of all of God's thoughts, in number infinite and everywhere without all limit. Only love creates, and only like itself. There is no time when all that is created was not here, nor will there be a time when anything that is created suffers any loss. We are creation. We are the children of God. We seem to be discreet and unaware of our eternal unity within God, yet back of all of our doubts, past all of our fears, there is still a certainty. For love remains with all its thoughts, its sureness being theirs. God's memory is our holy minds, which knows their oneness and their unity within the Creator. Let our function be only this memory return, to let God's will be done on earth, only to be restored to sanity, and to be but as God created us. Isn't that a lovely upside down way about thinking of creation? Upside down in the sense of how we're taught creation is. Creation is the sum of all of God's thoughts and creates only like itself. We are love. We are creators. God's primary attribute, they say, often is creator, is generative. So is ours. I offer that to you, to live into your creativity, to know that all the time you are either creating with me or you're moving out of the moment and want things to be other than they are, want to experience something other than reality, want not to be us. Lesson 321 says, Father, my freedom is in you alone. So where are you? You're in God. God is in you and you are in God. Lesson 321, Father, my freedom is in you alone. And God is in eternity. That's outside of past or present. We're going to be talking a little bit about time today as well. Where is God? How is God? Where can we experience God? Lesson 322 is, I can give up, but what was never real? What was never real? The things that we wish were, like the past or the future, or lots and lots of things we can go into. I can give up, but what was never real? What we give up is what is not real. Lesson 323, I gladly make the sacrifice of fear. Fear is something that we do not want. Why are we experiencing what we do not want? That's a question that you need to find the answer to for yourself. And each of us is going to do that a little bit differently. We're going to answer that question a little bit differently out of our own experience and out of our own understanding. But we do it in the present moment. We let go. We are only ever sacrificing fear when we are present. You cannot bring fear into the moment. That's why we love heroes who are so calm and cool and collected in the face of incredible odds, right? We have somebody who keeps their calm and acts well and skillfully in a situation, as the Buddhists would say, to be skillful. We admire those people. We are actually that. We are sacrificing fear when we choose to be present. So I'd offer you that idea to apply. The Course in Miracles text today comes from chapter 26. It's called The Transition. And we're going to be looking at the first 6 sections. We're going to be looking at the sacrifice of oneness, and the word sacrifice is in quotes. And we're going to looking at many forms, one correction. Sounds like a textbook. Where sin has left. It sounds like a romance novel. Where sin has left. And the little hindrance. Maybe sounds like a children's book. And then we're going to wind up with the appointed friend. It's quite a beautiful little chapter. It's just a couple of pages, just a couple of paragraphs long, and I'm going to read it to you as our altar call at the end of the hour. Section 1. And next week, we're going to be looking at the laws of healing. I think there are 27 of them. She kind of does a review of the entire book. And it's really very interesting. It's a long chapter. We're going to get through it. I promise. This is why we're not bringing it up today. But we're going to be looking at the laws of healing. Very important. It's one of those long day-long workshops I often do. It's on the laws of healing. And we're going to do that a little bit more in an hour next week. So bring a seatbelt. So because it's going to be a quick and fast and furious ride next week. So then we're going to be talking next week. We're going to be talking about the immediacy of salvation. And then, for they have come. Maybe that's a science fiction show. For they have come. And the section 10 is called The End of Injustice, right? We had the justice last week. We're going to be, in specialist, we're going to be talking about the end of injustice. And because it's important that we begin to have a smooth way of moving from illusion into truth, from illusion into presence. And that's what this transition is called. We begin to understand what it is that's keeping us from this moment, what it is that's keeping me from being connected, what it is that's keeping me from sharing the love of God with the world in the way that Glen does that. So this is what is happening. Section 1 says it's called the sacrifice of oneness. And listen, this is another way of thinking about this very Christian notion, and Buddhist, I would say, but Christians talk about this a lot. A strict some of the interpretations of Christianity. And again, Course in Miracles is not a Christian path. It uses Christian language, but it is not the Christian. It's not Christian in the way that we talk about the fundamental ideas of Christianity. And it hinges on this idea of sacrifice. This is what it says. In the dynamics of attack is sacrifice a key idea. It is the pivot point on which all compromise, all desperate attempts to strike a bargain, and all conflicts achieve a seeming balance. It is a symbol, sacrifice. Sacrifice is a symbol of the central theme that somebody must lose. Somebody has to lose. The world you see is based on the sacrifice of oneness. It's a picture of complete disunity and a total lack of joining. Around each entity is built a wall so seeming solid that it looks as if what is inside can never reach without, and what is out can never reach and join with what is locked away within the wall. Each part must sacrifice the other part to keep itself complete, the inside and the outside. For if they joined, each one would lose its own identity, and by their separation are their selves maintained. The little body that fences off becomes the self, preserved through the sacrifice of all the rest. And all the rest must lose this little part, remaining incomplete, to keep its own identity intact. In this perception of yourself, the body's loss would be a sacrifice indeed. See, we think we would lose ourself if we joined the oneness. Now, that's not true. We would become more expressive and safe and free to be ourselves. We wouldn't be guarding ourselves and making sure that we wouldn't be motivated out of our comfort. Our comfort would be a product of our sharing. Do you see do you see how that's upside down? Choosing actions choosing actions to increase a body's comfort is only asking for more pain, and it rests on the idea that we're desperate, separate people. Acting on our oneness, like if I work toward your happiness, I'm acting toward my oneness. If I work toward the greater good of all beings, I'm acting on my oneness. I do that, and I create safety for my body in the way that I want to use it and learn from it. Acting on truth creates safety. We don't do that because we think we would lose ourselves. We would lose if I'm not taking care of my body, then, if I'm not, planning for my comfort, then who will? Well, that's upside down she's offering here. The idea is that we act on oneness and not on our body identification. And our bodies actually respond with health and safety because we're acting on truth. And our personality is much the same way, and that gets talked about a lot. We think we will lose our personality if we join. People talk about being married and losing themselves. People talk about being in love and losing themselves. Some people don't like themselves, and that's a attractive prospect. Most of us like ourselves well enough and are too afraid to really join a community or really be a part of a larger thing because we feel like we would be swallowed up in it. That is also actually not true. You become all that power and energy and connection and truth and joy become available to you, and you're able to use it in your own life. That's what she's offering here. That's the idea. The sacrifice of oneness. We sacrifice the power of oneness and the promise of oneness so that we can remain little and seemingly in control. Also, not very true. You can look at your own life and know that every time you grab for more control, it comes with more suffering. Now, I'm not talking about competence and I'm not talking about skill, because being a skilled a carver means you're in control of those tools. You're really able to use those tools really well. But if you are acting on the truth, what you will do is you will know that you're no different from the medium that you're working with, and you do what Michelangelo did, is you just bring out what is already there. You and the medium are actually working together in a conversation using the skill of those tools and letting the tools remove or enhance or be used well, right, in order to create mutual that creation that we talk about, a greater connection, a greater love, of greater understanding and peace and joy. That's what in this relationship, because the Course reminds us over and over again that what we are is a relationship. This idea of oneness can be understood as a relationship, capital R, relationship. Section 2 of the transition. We are moving into the moment. The sacrifice first is the sacrifice of oneness, the idea that we don't want to be here because we feel like we will lose. The second is it's called many forms, one correction. This is a very, very Zen Buddhist idea. If you've follow Alan Watts or some of these others that talk about Zen Buddhism or Adyashanti, this many forms, one correction idea you'll be very familiar with. But it's so listen to what she says. And this is the idea of transition, moving from moving from what we think is wrong, and letting go of that so we can be present. This is what she says. It is not difficult to understand the reasons why you do not ask the Holy Spirit to solve all problems for you. There's a reason why you don't ask. He has not a greater difficulty in resolving some than others. Every problem is the same to the Holy Spirit because each one is solved in just the same respect and through the same approach. Did you know you only have one problem that has many forms? Many forms, one correction. If you've got a problem that has many forms, then you've got the ability to apply one solution to them. This is what she says. The Holy Spirit offers you release from every problem that you think you have. They are the same in Him because each one, regardless of the form it seems to take, is a demand that someone suffer loss and make a sacrifice that you might gain. Or the other way around, you have to lose so that somebody else can gain. And when the situation is worked out so no one loses, is the problem gone? Because it was an error in perception that has now been corrected. When no one loses, it's called win-win, right? But even that idea of win-win has the idea of loss in it. The situation is worked out. The situation is worked out. She says, I love that phrase, worked out. The situation is worked out, so no one loses. Is the problem gone? The problem leaves when no one loses rather than everyone wins. It's kind of a different way of understanding it, wouldn't you say? We work at making sure that no one loses. What would it take? What decisions would you make if you weren't concerned about winning, but you were concerned about making sure that no one loses. It's a slightly different perspective. One mistake is not more difficult for him to bring the truth than the other. For there is but one mistake, the whole idea that loss is possible and could result in gain for anyone. If this were true, then God would be unfair, and sin would be possible, and attack be justified, and vengeance fair. This one mistake in any form has one correction. There is no loss. To think there is a mistake. There is no loss. See, that's how we can make decisions. When no one loses, it's proof that there is no loss. And that is the problem solved, because we're able to see the oneness. And when you see oneness, you're able to make the decisions and act on that oneness so that we can create the structures that bring about the peace in this world that we want to experience, the creativity in this world that we want to experience, the joy in this world that we want to experience. There is no loss. When we're seeing win-lose, we're actually seeing bodies, we're actually seeing illusion. So what's the one correction? Many forms, one correction. One correction is acting on our oneness. When we have a problem, when we are upset, it is because we believe that one person is gaining and we are losing. We are losing, so someone else has to gain. We are believing in that dichotomy, that dualism, I would offer. So we learned today that in order to transition into a more stable ability to be present, we need to give up the idea that we won't be here when we get here. I hope you understand that idea is that being present and being 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 who and wholly who you think you are is acting as the oneness. It has all that creativity in it. And the second idea is that being one and acting like we're one actually solves our problems, solves the problems of others as well. Because we become a light for that kind of correction. We become present, that safe presence in which people seek out to be with us because they know they're okay. They know they're safe. The Buddha says often that the greatest gift that you could give another is your presence in lack of fear. Did you know that? The greatest gift that you can give someone is your presence as the space of without fear. Without fear. Without fear is the knowledge that there is no loss. There is no loss. There is no loss. You aren't losing. There is no sacrifice. There is no way of grabbing a hold. Sacrifice is, I understand it today, is the idea of having something and destroying it so that you can have something else. We often talk about sacrifice in ways that are really about choice. A mother would sacrifice, we talk about it in the way of a mother sacrificing her career in order for her children, or a parent sacrificing their career for their children. No, they're choosing their children. They didn't acquire this career, destroy it, and then and that brought about the children. Sacrifice creates the children, the ability to enjoy the children. The sacrifice creating the ability to enjoy the children. That's not how it works. We choose to do the right thing. We choose to act on our oneness and be a part of our children's lives and to offer them the peace, safety, joy, and love that is our presence, rather than offering that to a job or a career. Because we're not sacrificing that career, we are choosing truth. It's the idea that that idea of sacrifice is so ingrained in our culture. It can be difficult to pull apart. So I would encourage you to ask yourself your understanding about sacrifice and what that is, and to take out of your understanding, to take out of your action and thought process, or what I say, place a red flag, where you come across in your own thinking ideas of loss, and ideas of winning or losing, and ideas of sacrifice. That when you do those things, we're actually participating in structures that create suffering for everyone. Okay? Section 3. And we're only going to do 6 sections today. So we are pretty much at the halfway mark at section 3. So we're doing pretty good. Sacrifice of oneness, it's not true. We have the one correction, many forms. We act on our oneness. So the section 3 is called the borderland. Maybe another science fiction idea. I was thinking of Madonna as well. Borderline, you're pushing me over the borderline. Wonder what she means. There is a borderland of thought that stands between this world and heaven, she says. It is not a place, but it is not a place. And when you reach it, it is apart from time. Here is the meeting place where thoughts are brought together, where conflicting values meet, and all illusions are laid down beside the truth, where they are judged to be untrue. This borderline is just beyond the gate of heaven. Here is every thought made pure and wholly simple. Here is sin denied, and everything that is received instead. Everything that is received instead. That borderline is this present moment and our ability to let go of what we do not want, let go of control, the idea that something needs to be controlled, I would say. But she says, this is journey's end. So do you believe that? Do you believe that once you've learned, that the journey is learning how you are present? Do you believe that learning your ways in which being present is the whole journey? There's nothing to do when you get present. There's only presence that is the doing. Now, that sounds kind of wonky, but think about it. Does a hummingbird do anything? No, it's not doing. It is being a hummingbird. Now its wings are going, and it's nectar eating or whatever it's actually we call doing in this dualistic world, but it is. She's offering the understanding here that it's being a hummingbird. Now we can be the oneness. Oneness is expressed through a body as us in this doing and sharing the love of God with the world. And it looks like, maybe just from an outside observer, that we're knitting, or we're building a home, or we're reading, or listening to a child. It looks that way, and I'm going to give you that. That's the non-dual world that we live in. We think there's depth. We think there's color. We think there's form. That's only the way that the body interprets the input that we're given. None of it, she offers in the introduction, is actually real, because it's not always here. It's comes and goes, like the Buddha says. It says our bodies are dependent arising. She makes the distinction there that that's not a real thing. So the journey is our understanding, our learning, the ways in which we cannot be present. Your presence isn't a body. Your presence isn't a doing. Your presence is animating or supplying the energy or creating the body and the world and the movement of it, because it feels in a body like there's movement. But what she's offering us here is the journey ends when we become present, because there is no, as Alan Watts would say, there is no there. And we can experience it, but it's not really describable, because we don't have those senses in a body. There is no language and dualistic words that are here to be able to give you an understanding. We have to have a past and a present in order to have language, because there's We have to be able to talk about, what are we having for lunch? Or, when was this book written? We have to have those ideas about past and present to talk about language. But language, it will only ever be symbols of what is real or what we're talking about. They're only symbols and ideas representing other things. The journey is the understanding of that. The journey ends when we use those things as they are meant to be used, and we don't call them real. We don't call table the table. The table isn't the word. The word isn't the thing, or as Ken Wilber would say, the map is not the territory. Your journey is to understand how it is that you get present. And she calls that the transition. Understanding that for ourselves, understanding about how we do that is important. This is the journey's end. We have referred to it as the real world, and yet there is a contradiction here in that the words imply a limited reality, a partial truth, a segment of the universe made true. This is because knowledge makes no attack upon perception. They're brought together, and only one contains the past gate where salvation is. One continues past the gate where salvation is. Salvation is the borderland where place and time and choice have meaning still, and yet it can be seen that they're temporary, out of place, and every choice has already been made. You see what I'm talking about here? Is not this like your special function, where the separation is undone by a change of purpose in what once was specialness and is now union. All illusions are but one, and in the recognition that this is so lies the ability to give up all attempts to choose between them and to make them different. How simple is the choice between two things so clearly unalike? There is no conflict here, no sacrifice is possible in the relinquishment of an illusion recognized as such. Where all reality has been withdrawn from what was never true, can it be hard to give up and choose what must be true? Not being present is our desire to not have anything that is true. What is true is what is doesn't change. The borderland is our ability to use those tools well and to be able to recognize the difference between illusion and reality and act appropriately, to act on our oneness, to see and be with somebody who's trying to convince us that the world is awful and not safe and it's a terrible, dangerous place, and offering them the idea that there's already peace here and that we could be experiencing peace. We could be working toward strengthening the connection we have with love and joy, rather than pointing out the ways in which we try to sacrifice each other for our own comfort or for the comfort of our loved ones. Something to think about. Here we find ourselves in section 4. We have section 4 and section 5, and then we're going to have an altar call. The altar call is 3 paragraphs long, and it's called The Appointed Friend, and I can't wait to get to it. We'll get to that in about 10 minutes. We have section 4. She offers up here. We're talking about what is true. Oh my God, what is true is only present. And how do I get here? I feel like I have difficulty with. I feel like I have to give up my personality. I have to act on some kind of oneness to solve my problems. Learning how my body does that or how I experience that in the body and making that okay. She calls that the borderland. So I find myself now in the borderland between moving out of this world of comfortable illusions into this world of excited presence. So where am I now? Sometimes we find ourselves that we don't really know a lot about what's going on in the present. We've spent so little time here, and that we identify with what has always gone wrong. And she addresses this. She says, in section 4, where sin has left. Sin has left. And sin, of course, being the belief that we can break God. Forgiveness is this world's equivalent of heaven's justice. It translates the world of sin into a simple world, where justice can be reflected from beyond the gate from which the total lack of limits lies. Nothing in boundless love could need forgiveness. And what is charity within the world gives away simply to simple justice past the gate that opens onto heaven. No one forgives unless he believes in sin and still believes that he has much to be forgiven. Forgiveness thus becomes the means by which he learns he has done nothing to forgive. Forgiveness always rests upon the one who offers it until he sees himself as needing it no more. And thus as he is returned to his real function of creating, which his forgiveness offers him again. So you're either creating or looking for sin and pardoning it. And that's always an internal activity. Forgiveness is always for yourself, because we only ever project out what we don't like about ourselves. And we call other people wrong and bad when they're just trying to create the same peace that we are and doing it poorly according to our judgment. Okay. This tiny spot of sin that stands between you and your brother is still holding back the happy opening of heaven's gate. So where's heaven's gate? It's at the acceptance of who you are and the forgiveness of who you are and the way the world looks and your understanding and your journey and your gifts and your talents and your passions. That's what it's for. It's to allow that expression to come out. And how little is the hindrance that holds the wealth of heaven from you. All that power of the community, of the oneness, could be rushing into you and being expressed through you as the oneness, if you would just let yourself be. And like Yolanda is always telling me, would you just leave her alone? You know, I have a habit of engaging people a little intensely. Can you imagine? And how great will be the joy in heaven when you join the mighty chorus of the love, to the mighty chorus to the love of God. Another way of offering a metaphor for being present with the oneness is joining the chorus of love to the Creator. Right? So it's a chorus. So there are many people there, all offering out their unique voice and turning it into one voice. The truth is one voice, but it is. She offers here the idea of joining the present moment, is joining the chorus, is adding your unique voice to the song of love to the Creator. It's quite beautiful. And that's where sin has left. Sin has left where you are able to be yourself at all times with everyone, no matter what is happening. And that will mean that you have forgiven yourself for being you, with the gender you have, the sexuality you have, the body you have, the color you have, the part of the world you live in, the language you speak, your favorite foods, your talents and passions, the things that you're not so good at, the things that you don't particularly want to experience, all of that. When you're able to accept yourself as you are, and as God created you, as the child of God, as a creator. What is your function? Your function is to create. Creation is love, and peace is life. This is what we're talking about. This is where we are. Little hindrance. You know, so what is it that really stops us from doing that? We sometimes get attached to being the wrong or the bad person. This is what she says. She talks about this little hindrance, this tiny spot of sin. And then she says in section 5, each day and every minute in each day and every instant that each minute holds, you but relive the single instant when the time of terror took the place of love. And so you die each day to live again until you cross the gap between the past and the present, which is not a gap at all. Such is life, a seeming interval between birth and death, and onto life again, a repetition of what is an instant gone by long ago, that cannot be relived. And all the time is but the mad belief that what is over is but still here and now. Forgive the past and let it go. Forgive the past and let it go, for it is gone. Forgive the past and let it go, for it is gone. Forgive the past and let it go, for it is gone. You stand no longer on the ground that lies between the worlds. You've gone on, and you've reached the world that lies at heaven's gate. There's no hindrance to the will of God, nor any need that you repeat the journey that was over long ago. See, how we do this and how this is done has already been solved, as it were. It's solved by the many sages and technologies that we look to. St. Francis, St. Clara, Meister Eckhart, and many, many, many others. There is no hindrance to the will of God, nor any that need you repeat again the journey that was over long ago. Look gently on your brother, and behold the world in which perception of your hate has been transformed into the world of love. That's the test. You look across your brother and you go, oh my God, you are talented and wonderful and beautiful and totally amazing. And I want to be your friend, and let's create together. Let's do these really neat things together. That's sort of the test of whether or not we're seeing with the eyes of God, seeing in this perspective. Now, you remember from the very beginning, from the lesson, what is creation? Creation is the accumulation of all the thoughts of God. There's a lesson in the Course in Miracles that says, you are a thought in the mind of God. One mind, like that chorus, adding your voice to the song of love. Don't you want to do that? Doesn't that sound exciting? We need your voice in the chorus. It's really very, very important. It's very important that you learn, that you get on this journey and find out how you do things, whether you're a morning person, or whether you want to study the Course in Miracles, or whether you want to study the Upanishads, or the Hopi elders, or whatever it is. Find your passion. Find what it is that you will actually do, and begin that journey to the borderland where the gates of heaven open and love shines in. Do you see that we are creating structures with outcomes? We change our mind about what's going on in the world. We use what's happening in the world to apply the ideas in our own bodies and the way we understand them. We take those ideas of suffering and not suffering and what works and comfort, those ideas of comfort and what brings about greater understandings of experiences of safety and peace. And we create momentum with those ideas by building structures that have those outcomes for others. We create institutions and schools, churches, and communities in which we are able to support our ability to express and share our love of the world together, and express and enjoy the world that others support the others' ability to share the love of God with others. And that builds the community and the connection that we are craving. This is called the altar call. It's called the appointed friend. And it says this, it's the entire chapter called the appointed friend. Anything in this world that you believe is good and valuable and worth striving for can hurt you and will do so. Not because it has the power to hurt, but because you have denied it is but an illusion and made it real. And it is real to you. It is not nothing. And through its perceived reality has entered all the world of sick illusions, all belief in sin, and all the power of attack and hurt and harm and sacrifice and death has come to you. No one can make one illusion real and escape the rest. For who can choose to keep the ones that he prefers and find safety in the truth that he alone can give? Who can believe illusions are the same and still maintain that even one is best? Lead not your little life in solitude with one illusion as your only friend. This is no friendship worthy of God's Son, nor one with which he could remain content. Yet God has given him a better friend, in whom all power on earth and heaven rests. The one illusion that you think is friend obscures his grace and majesty from you, and keeps his friendship and forgiveness from your welcoming embrace. Without him, you are friendless. Seek not another friend to take his place. There is no other friend. What God appointed has no substitute. For what illusion can replace the truth? Who dwells with shadows is alone indeed, and loneliness is not the will of God. Would you allow one shadow to usurp the throne that God appointed to you, friend? If you but realize its emptiness has left yours empty and unoccupied, make no illusion, friend, for if you do, it can but take the place of him whom God has called your friend. And it is he who is your only friend in truth. He brings you gifts that are not of this world, and only he to whom they have been given can make sure that you receive them at all. He will place them on your throne when you make room for him on his. Father, my freedom is in you alone. I can give up what was never real, and I gladly make the sacrifice of fear. You're not alone and friendless. You're just not. You have a community all around you. There are people reaching out to you as surely as you are reaching out to others. There are people that are longing to know you, just like you. There are folks that you are longing to know. There are folks who want to share their living life and love with you, just like you want to share your light and love with the world. So, what's stopping you? I would say what is stopping you is your belief that you're not going to get what you want. I believe that what's stopping you is you haven't learned your favorite escape methods from this moment. I would believe that what is stopping you from sharing your life and your love with the world is because you're trying to do it all by yourself. That you believe that the past has to be corrected. You believe that that you can break God, maybe, and get it so wrong that your life is now ruined. That's also not true. You have a place in the mind of God. Take it. We need you there. Get excited about what is yours to do and bring it to the world, and find others that want to help you do that, and make it your business to help others create the world that they want. In this peace and love and joy and understanding that when we get present, we find out is lovely. We find ourselves in this moment. We are expressions of the moment, and so is everyone else. Join this moment. Join this movement of creation in which we become greater and greater tools of love and the expression of love with the world. It is yours to do. I'm Reverend Glen and my passion is A Course in Miracles. I can be reached at glenganaway.com, GLENGANAWAY.com, or you can get on my mailing list at gmganaway@gmail.com. But until then, Keep being yourself. Step up as you into into the real world, and know that we are one and we act like it.
My constant companion. Oh, God is my constant companion.